to finish up on that last part where I got cut off a little bit, just that through artificial selection, we get the modern corn that is descended from the ancestral wild corn, the teosinte, that looks nothing like the corn of today, at least the wild corn that we grow in agriculture. Darwin also knew that individuals and populations have differences, variations, but did not know exactly what forces determined which individuals survived and became what is referred to as breeding stock. So he knew that there was variations, that there was variation in populations, like we see here in these ladybug beetles, or in elk, but he wasn't quite sure what forces determined which ones actually got to survive and breed and pass on those heritable traits. An economist, Thomas Malthus, wrote some important pieces and discussed things how human disease, famine, and war were consequences of human populations, or the human population that was increasing faster than our food supply and other resources. So that led to competition among humans and even warfare. So this idea by Malthus that the environment, in a way, had limited resources that caused competition among humans was something that Darwin applied to wild native populations. So Darwin applied Malthus's ideas to plants and animals and realized that resources of any given environment are limited. So the resources for beetles or deer to survive are not unlimited, but they are limited. And production of more individuals than the environment can support would lead to a struggle for existence. And only some of the offspring would survive to reproduce for the next generation. So more offspring are born than can survive. And it depends on what particular habitat you might be living in terms of an organism. Whether it's on land or in the water. Here's a marine slug, something called a nudibranch, that lays many, many eggs. And even if they all hatch, or even if they don't all hatch, more individuals are born than a particular environment can support. And that's the essence of how natural selection occurs. Natural selection is this unequal reproduction based on unequal survival. So the process of natural selection, those individuals whose traits better enable them to survive, obtain food, escape predators, or be more efficient predators, or tolerate the environment, will survive proportionally better than those individuals that lack those particular beneficial traits, and more likely than not to reproduce more successfully, and will pass on those adaptive traits to their offspring. That doesn't mean that every single offspring will have those beneficial traits, but some will. And as they grow, the same environmental pressures will be applied to those offspring, and again, the ones that have inherited those beneficial traits will more likely survive, will more likely reach adulthood, and will more likely reproduce. And then the next generation encounters those same pressures. So natural selection, through generations and generations, will select for beneficial adaptive traits, and those beneficial adaptive traits will become more common and more pronounced in populations of organisms. That's the basis of how natural selection works. And as we'll see, as those traits in populations become more and more pronounced, that could lead to variation among populations. Populations can separate, and that can drive speciation, the appearance of new species. And we'll get into that later. So what you might consider the survival of the fittest is natural selection, selecting for beneficial traits among individuals and populations that allow them to survive, reach adulthood, reproduce, and pass those traits on to their offspring. So natural selection in action, talking about how pesticides select for pesticide resistance in many insect species. So pesticides will kill most insects, but subsequent applications have become less and less effective. The reason why? Well, this is natural selection being pushed forward and accelerated through the process of pesticide application in agriculture. So any survivors to the pesticide will likely carry a gene or allele that allows them to survive and have some resistance. When pesticides are applied to the overall population, most insects will get wiped out. The ones that survive may survive because they have a beneficial gene or allele, so they've been selected for in this case. They will survive, they'll reproduce, and more likely than not, more of the individuals will have this beneficial allele. Next round of pesticide use won't kill nearly as much of them. And you can see over maybe of just a few generations, the numbers of individuals that have this resistance will become the majority of the population. The pesticide won't really work anymore. They either have to apply more pesticide or more often or change pesticides. So the number of pesticide-resistant individuals will increase with each generation. So natural selection affects individual organisms, but we do not say that the individual organism evolves. We talk about evolution of populations of organisms. So the individual may survive, may perish, may reproduce, may pass on beneficial characteristics to their offspring, but only the population of a species will evolve. So a population evolves over time as adaptive traits become more and more common and or other traits change or totally disappear. So one reason why cheetahs are so fast is because the things they hunt, the prey they hunt, like gazelles, are also very fast. So there's an evolutionary natural selective pressure on both populations. The predator species and the prey species evolve jointly. If the prey species is pretty quick, the predator species has to also be fast to be able to catch it. So the only ones that survive of the prey species in general are the faster ones. So that's natural selection selecting for fast gazelles. And the only individuals of the prey species, the cheetah, that can survive are the ones that are going to be able to catch the fast prey species. So there's natural selective pressure for speed on the cheetah's part. So over evolutionary time, you get a predator and a prey species that are very closely linked to each other, and in this case happen to be both very fast. So evolution refers to generational change in populations. Again, populations evolve, not individuals. So natural selection is not goal-oriented. It's not directed. It's kind of by chance in a way. It does not lead to perfectly adapted organisms. Even though certain organisms might seem perfectly adapted to their environments, whales are nice, streamlined. They have a fair amount of fat to keep them warm in the water. They are mammals. They breathe air. There's the blowhole, air hole. And they are very, very well adapted to their particular environment, the water, the ocean. However, take them out of their beneficial environment, plop them onto dry land, and they won't last very long. They will just simply perish. So natural selection has selected populations that are really well adapted to their environments. But if their environments change, and especially a drastic change, and all of a sudden those adaptive traits are no longer beneficial. Okay? If the environment changes, the natural selective pressures on populations change, and those populations will adapt and evolve if they are going to survive, and if they don't, then they may perish. So a trait that is favorable in one situation may be useless or even detrimental in a different situation. Put this individual without any additional breathing apparatus into the water and submerge it, and it probably will not survive because it has evolved to live on dry land. So, the evolution of populations. So Darwin did not know how variations, the raw material for natural selection, arise in a population, or how these variations are passed along from parents to offspring. However, somebody had figured it out not that long before Darwin. If you remember, Gregor Mendel, the father of genetics, he had answered these questions with his humble pea experiments. If Darwin had known about Mendel's work, Darwin would have had his genetic basis for how natural selection operates at the genetic level in organisms and how they evolve. So the sources of genetic variation. So individual variation occurs in all species. The phenotype, remember, like different flower color, these are different phenotypes of garter snakes, but they're all still the same species. These individuals are still in the same species of snake. So not all variation in a population is heritable. Only the genetic component, the genotype of variation, is relevant to natural selection because it's only the genotype, the genes, right, the alleles on chromosomes that can get passed on, that are heritable to the offspring, as we saw in Mendel's peas. So mutations are new alleles that originate by mutation. And we talked about that previously, and these are changes in nucleotide sequences of DNA. Sometimes they're silent, often they are detrimental. In rare cases, they are beneficial because they lead to variation and genetic variation that can serve as raw material for evolution. Our example here is of one base pair substitution in the gene for hemoglobin causing that sickle cell disease, sickle cell anemia. So a mutation that affects a protein function will probably be harmful in most cases. Sometimes it is silent, no effect. Mutations can duplicate a gene or genes and can provide a source of genetic variation and even lead to new genes with new novel functions. And that's raw material for natural selection to act upon. The mutation could be beneficial in rare cases. So on rare occasions, a mutated allele may actually improve an adaptation of an individual to its environment and or enhance its reproductive success. Mutations in prokaryotes, simple organisms, can occur quickly within a population. For one, because bacteria are relatively simple, small genome. They have a single allele for each gene, only one chromosome. So a new allele can have an effect immediately on the population because they also reproduce quickly. In fact, there's a species of bacteria that developed a mutation, as I mentioned before, that actually is able to break down a certain type of plastic. So a spontaneous mutation that occurred, and it happened to occur in a dump that had a lot of plastic in Japan, I believe, where it happened to be, in this case, beneficial to the organism because it can exploit a new food source, plastic. Science is trying to figure out how to bioengineer this mutation so that it is more effective in breaking down plastic and a source of reducing pollution. Okay, we'll continue in the next section.